start our petitioner hearings. We have Deputy Attorney General Melissa, how do you pronounce your last name, Melissa?
Seamantle.
Seamantle, and then our Administrative Law Judge, Judge Heather Rowan.
Thank you. I believe that we're starting with Mr. Bystrom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. You can have a seat at this table right here. Okay, we are on the record before the Board of Chiropractic Examiners to review the petition for reinstatement of Michael Bystrom, OAH number 2017-041014. My name is Heather Rowan. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I've been assigned to preside over this matter. Will the members of the board please identify themselves for the record, starting with the board member on my farthest right.
Sure, do I have my own?
Dr. Heather Dane.
Frank Ruffino.
Corey Lickman.
Dr. John Rosa.
Thank you. We have a quorum of the board. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Melissa Seamantle, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. And Mr. Bystrom, you are present and representing yourself today, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, before the hearing, I explained the procedures in the matter for the petitioner. As I explained before we went on the record, the Deputy Attorney General will proceed first to present the petition and provide an orientation in this matter. After that, Mr. Bystrom, you'll have the opportunity to make a presentation under oath on your own behalf to explain why you believe that your license should be reinstated. You may call witnesses, and those witnesses will also be subject to questioning by the board. As a reminder, the board is particularly concerned with your rehabilitation since your license was revoked. The board has read the petition package. You don't need to repeat what is in the petition package, but try to present your story in your own words. After both hearings today, the board will go into closed session to discuss their findings. You will not get a decision today, but you should get one in the mail sometime in the future. Any questions before we begin?
No.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ciamenta.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Seamantle, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. If I may approach with the petition packet.
Yes.
And there's also an amended memorandum for the board members and also the ALJ, if I may approach with that as well. In regards to the petition packet, the personal information has been redacted and a copy has been provided to petitioner.
Thank you.
In regards to a brief background, the board issued petitioner chiropractic license number DC-23474 on December 8th of 1994. On June 30th of 2004, the license was in forfeiture due to petitioner's failure to pay the required renewal fee and expired effective that date. On January 20th of 2005, the license was returned to active status and was to expire on June 30th of 2006. However, effective April 15th of 2006, the license was revoked. Petitioner's license was revoked in the matter of the accusation against Michael Eric Bystrom, board case number 2005-473, and OAH case number N2005-06048. The accusation in the matter is based upon petitioner violating state laws regarding controlled substances, his commission of acts involving moral turpitude, dishonesty, or corruption, and aiding and abetting an unlicensed person in the unlicensed practice of chiropractic. The circumstances are that petitioner from approximately 1994 through March of 2004 used cocaine while licensed as a chiropractor. Petitioner also used cocaine mixed with OxyContin without a lawful prescription. From approximately April of 2005 until October 10th of 2005, petitioner allowed his brother to hold himself out as a doctor of chiropractic and to practice chiropractic in petitioner's office. After the board adopted the decision and order in the matter, in addition to license revocation, the decision and order ordered reimbursement of board costs for prosecution and enforcement of the case in the amount of $3,883. Petitioner has made payment of this full amount, and there is no remaining balance owed. Petitioner is requesting that the board reinstate his license. Because the burden is on the petitioner, I have no further statements, but would reserve the right to question the petitioner.
Thank you. Mr. Bystrom, will you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Bystrom, this is your opportunity to present your case to the board.
All right. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story to the board. You know, as I listen to those facts, it's pretty embarrassing, the behavior back when that happened. I've written a pretty extensive letter to the board detailing the circumstances of how I became a chiropractor and what led up to the revocation of my license, and more importantly, what I've done since then to show the board that I've rehabilitated myself from that behavior. I'd like to kind of summarize that information with a focus on the rehabilitative efforts. You know, when I was 19, I was first introduced to chiropractic, and it made such an impact on my life that I chose to pursue this profession. I attended Los Angeles College of Chiropractic, where I graduated in December of 1993, took the board, became licensed, moved back to Modesto, worked for another chiropractor for the next 5 years, where I learned some of the skills necessary to run a practice and take care of patients. And then in 2000, I went out on my own and I opened up Bystrom Family Chiropractic. Sometime between 2003, 2004, I became addicted to illegal drugs. I was arrested in 2005 for possession of illegal narcotics. The board was notified. They contacted me asking for an explanation of what had happened. And at that time, I gave them a story that just wasn't true. You know, the fact of the matter was I was suffering from a growing addiction to illegal drugs, and I was losing control of my behavior. I was quickly watching everything in my life that was important to me slip through my fingers. My practice was dwindling. My wife left me, took our children. So as my life is crumbling, my concerned family had an intervention for me in 2006, and I agreed to go to rehab for a second time. While I was in rehab in Florida, I managed to get clean from drugs, but at this time I still wasn't convinced I was an alcoholic, so I continued to drink. And on July 4th, 2006, I got a DUI. I went back to inpatient at the rehab facility, completed the program, and moved back to Northern California, trying to get my life back together. Well, at this time, I had managed to put together small amounts of time where I wasn't drinking or using. I was abstinent from drugs and alcohol. but ultimately I wasn't doing anything to make any internal changes. I wasn't involved in any program of recovery or seeking any counsel. And so I continued to struggle with a growing addiction that came back into my life over the next few years. And finally, in December of 2010, I just reached a point where I was sick and tired of being on the verge of solving my own problems, but never quite getting there. And at this time, I became completely convinced that I did not have the power within me to fix what was going on in my life. So in December of 2010, I entered the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous as a different person, someone who had been humbled, someone who had reached his rock bottom and was willing to be open to the suggestions of recovery. In January 2nd, 2011, I used drugs for the last time. I continued going to meetings, listening to the suggestions of others that had been there before me, and in January 26, 2011, I took my last drink. I followed the suggestions of recovery, and I knew that if I was going to get this new way of life that they were talking about, that it was going to be necessary for me to work the 12 steps. So I asked another member to be my sponsor, and for the next 12 to 18 months, we met on a weekly basis, working through the steps. And somewhere between steps 4 and 9, I was able to experience what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous calls a spiritual awakening. This is where I had the burden of that mental obsession to drink and to use was finally lifted. So the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. And for me, I could relate to the second statement in that first step. Clearly, my life had become unmanageable. You know, the evidence was all around me. But I had trouble relating to what the powerlessness over alcohol was. So I was taught in the foreword of the big book, Dr. Silkworth was a prominent MD at the time that was working with alcoholics. And he described this powerlessness as a twofold condition. It's described as a physical allergy combined with a mental obsession. And this is what drives the alcoholic to continue to drink or use. That physical allergy is once I put a drink or a substance in my body that changes the way I think or feel, I lose all ability to regulate taking that substance or that drink. And that's combined with a mental obsession, which is a thought process that tells me every time I manage to get clean or sober that it's going to be different this time, that it's okay to take that first drink. And therein lies that cycle of insanity that the alcoholic suffers from. So somewhere between the 4th and 9th step, that mental obsession was lifted. I continued working through the 12 steps. When I got to the 12th step, it states, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we continue to practice these principles in all of our affairs and carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. So taking that suggestion, I began sponsoring people in the program. At this time, I was attending 5 recovery meetings a week. Most of them were AA. I was chairing 2 meetings a week. I was working with newcomers, sponsoring people in the program, continuing to meet with my sponsor on a regular basis. It was also suggested to me at this time, early in my recovery, that it might be a good idea to seek one-on-one counseling with an addiction specialist. So for a 5-year period, I met with Dr. Jim Hinman, who's a psychologist that specializes in addiction and recovery. And through the work of Dr. Hinman, I was able to dive deeper into the reasons that originally drove me to that destructive behavior, the drinking, the using. And I was able to dive deeper into my recovery. So I'm sitting before the board today as part of my 9th step, which is making amends to those that I have harmed. I've paid restitution to the board. I've spent the last 6.5 years of my life intensely working in the program of recovery trying to put the pieces of my life back together. I'm sitting before you today, 10 years, 11 years after my license was revoked, as a different person than I was back when that happened. So I hope the board is able to recognize the changes I've made and consider giving me the opportunity to once again hold a license to practice chiropractic.
Thank you, Mr. Bystrom. Ms. Seamantle, do you have questions for Mr. Bystrom?
Yes, I do. In the packet that you submitted to the board, you submitted some CE courses that you have completed. Have you completed any CE courses since April 30th of 2015?
I don't believe I have.
In your statement, you did mention, I believe, 2 sobriety dates. Is that correct?
One is a clean date, one is a sobriety date.
Can you explain the difference between those two?
January 2nd, 2011 was the last time I used illegal drugs. January 26, 2011 is when I took my last drink.
You stated that you began attending AA meetings in December of 2010. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you enter AA or start attending the AA meetings while still consuming narcotics and alcohol?
I did.
Can you explain to the board what the initial change was that allowed you to stop consuming first the narcotics and then alcohol after shortly attending AA meetings?
So AA's only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Even though I was still drinking, I did have that desire. January 2nd, 2011, I left the country for 3 weeks. During that time, I made a decision that when I came back, I wanted to be clean. I wanted to begin my recovery. When I got home, I once again started attending the meetings of AA, and as I listened to some of the old-timers, people that had been there that had sustained recovery, their talk about drinking just resonated with me. You know, I remember statements like, drinking never got me that promotion at work. Drinking never enhanced my marriage with my wife. Statements that just completely rang true in my mind, and I made a decision at that point that if I wanted to get the promises that they talk about in the rooms of recovery, that I was going to have to follow the program 100%. And at that time, I was just casually drinking a beer here and there, and I decided, I'm going to do it. I'm all in.
Do you have a sponsor currently?
I do.
How often do you contact your sponsor?
I talk with them weekly.
Are you a sponsor for anyone?
I don't have any current sponsees that I'm working through the program. I still keep in contact with others that I've helped.
And when you say others that you've helped, were those people that you were sponsoring or just?
People that I was sponsoring. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You mentioned that between steps 4 and 9 you had, as you described, a spiritual awakening. Could you also describe that as kind of a breakthrough as well?
Absolutely.
Was that a one-moment thing or a process that you had during steps 4 through 9?
It was a process. I remember hearing about it, and it's something that's talked about in what's called the promises. And I remember just realizing one day somewhere through that process that, wow, that obsession is lifted. That doesn't mean that I was cured, but it just means that that burning desire that was always eating away in the back of my mind, wanting to tell me, as soon as the circumstances are right, you can go back out, was lifted.
Do you still consider yourself to be an alcoholic or an addict?
A recovering alcoholic and an addict.
Do you still see a psychologist?
I haven't seen Jim Hinman for probably a year, so no, not currently.
Do you have a relapse prevention plan?
I do. Steps 10, 11, and 12 are a way of life. I meet with my sponsor on a regular basis. I stay connected with men's groups in AA. I've always preferred going to men's groups just because I felt like there was a better relational component. So I have a whole support network.
Specifically, what steps do you have in place to prevent a possible relapse from occurring due to any stressors that you may encounter if your license is reinstated?
Well, I meet with my sponsor regularly. We continually work through steps 10, 11, and 12. I attend meetings of AA. I'm involved with growth groups at our church. These are small Bible study groups that are held outside the church, which is part of steps 11, improving my conscious contact with my higher power as I understood him through prayer and meditation. So I've just built a life around recovery.
You're currently working as the clinic director at Escalon Physical Medicine, is that right?
Correct.
What are your job duties as the clinical director?
So I manage all of the staff. I manage the flow of the office. At any point, we'll have between 12 and 20 employees. I go over care plans with patients. When we get busy, I help do patient intakes. So I just make sure everything's running smooth.
In a letter from Pastor, I may say his name incorrectly, Pilcher, says that you work with allergy testing. Can you explain what allergy testing is?
So we used to work with a nano SRT, which is a nano stress reduction therapy that uses biofeedback to help relieve allergies. That was several years ago. We no longer have that program in the office. I think that letter was written, I don't know what it stated, but it's old.
Speaking of the dates on the letters you provided are mostly from 2012. Yet you submitted your petition for reinstatement in 2016. Can you explain why the letters are from 2012 and not more recent?
Yes. So back when those letters were written, I was planning on petitioning for reinstatement at that time. Through working with my psychologist, he suggested that I spend more time in recovery. Going to a bunch of individuals and asking them to write a very personal letter, it was a little bit of a daunting task for people. And ultimately, as I went through that process, it took me about 6 months to collect those letters. And I didn't want to offend those people by going back and saying, hey, by the way, that letter that you wrote me at that time, I decided not to go through with that process until now. Would you mind updating it? So I decided to turn in those letters that I had.
When did you first use alcohol?
I'm 47. That's a long time ago to remember back to. I would say probably in my early teens, high school.
And approximately when did you first use narcotics without a valid prescription?
In college, probably 89.
In 2005, your brother was seeing patients in your practice, is that correct?
Yes,
And this was prior to him receiving his chiropractic license?
yes,
You are now working at your brother's practice as the clinical director, as you stated, correct?
yes.
What assurances can you give the board that you have not been seeing patients without a valid chiropractic license?
Well, we have 2 licensed chiropractors in the office right now that see patients. The entire staff knows that I'm not licensed. I guess I don't have any reassurance other than I simply haven't.
You stated that you started or had used narcotics without a valid prescription as early as about 1989.
Yes,
And in your statement, you stated that you became addicted to narcotics sometime between 2003 and 2004. Can you explain what the difference is between your use of narcotics starting in 1989 and when your addiction began in 2003 to 2004?
sure. So I think something I'd like to clarify, and this certainly doesn't justify my behavior, but in college, I was a partier. I was exposed to recreational drugs, and I tried them. If you read the facts on that paper, it paints a picture of me as a practicing drug addict since 1989. The fact of the matter was, I had several periods of my life where I wasn't using any drugs. I wasn't even drinking. As a matter of fact, in 2002, I ran the California International Marathon here in Sacramento. During that period of time, there was no drug use or even alcohol consumption in my life. So I don't remember all of the exact dates where drug use occurred in my life, but it did happen throughout my college years and from time to time in my adult years, but most of my adult life was pretty normal. Drinking on the weekends, productive work during the week. So what happened that caused me to become a drug addict? You know, I think that's $1 million question. I'm not sure I have a clear answer to that. It's a gradual disease that creeps into your life. If you would have told me 20 years ago I'd be sitting here before a board explaining my drug addiction, I would have thought you were crazy. Even as I'm preparing for this, 11 years since the event happened, 6.5 years in recovery, it seems absolutely absurd. So I don't know exactly what triggered it. Now, there are sessions that I spent with my psychologist where he talked about my ability to want to perform and present an image to the world of success and the pressure that that created in my life, where internally I was suffering from these insecurities that ultimately led me to self-medicate. And I believe that that theory makes a lot of sense, and that's probably the best explanation I can give.
I have one final question. Have you been convicted of any offenses since you submitted your petition for reinstatement?
I have not.
No further questions.
Thank you. Excuse me, does the board have questions for Mr. Bystrom? Starting to my right with Dr. Azzolino.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'd like to commend you for your rehabilitative efforts.
Thank you.
In regards to moving forward, should your license be reinstated, it's been quite some time that you've taken many courses. Do you feel you're competent as a chiropractor at this day and age?
I'm probably a little rusty. I am completely open to attending more continuing education. And it's not that I don't attend seminars or I don't stay involved in the chiropractic community. It's that I haven't attended any CE. But I absolutely feel that it would be a good idea for me to get some more CE credits. And, you know, I'm involved in the day-to-day operations of an office. I see the care that patients receive. I go over care plans with patients and explain the services in our office. But yeah, I'm sure that I'll be easing back in. In addition, even if my license is reinstated, I don't plan on seeing patients. That's not my goal. If it is reinstated, there will be the opportunity for me to help fill in with the other chiropractors that are currently in our office when they're not there, when the workload gets heavy.
Your goal is not to see patients that actively?
Correct. Yeah, not much will change in what I'm doing day to day if my license is reinstated.
Dr. Dane?
Thank you. I have just two additional questions from Dr. Esposito. One, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the time that your brother was practicing in your office. So he was a student at the time, right?
He had graduated and had taken the boards, but he had not received his license. Now, at that time, I had a licensed practitioner in the office seeing patients. But the time when we were reported to the board and investigated, I was completely out of the office. I had basically convinced my younger brother at that time to see patients solely without any other chiropractor there.
Was he under a postceptorship at
No.
the time? No, okay.
No, it was completely illegal, just another one of a long list of bad decisions I was making at that time.
And, thank you.
So, yeah, both him and I have gotten in trouble for this, and, you know, I caused harm to my brother by convincing him that it was going to be okay. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I've had an opportunity to make amends to him and, you know, continue to have a healthy relationship with him.
Okay. My last question is about the letter that Dr.
Hinman?
Wrote. He had the opinion that in the beginning of your treatment with him, you had a life, he called it a life based on performance.
Yes.
And can you tell me how that's changed? The reason why I'm asking is he feels, in the letter, it feels that that contributed to your addiction problem. So I want to know how that life based on performance has changed.
So going through the pain and the loss that I've suffered and the work that I've done in recovery, you know, there's a fine line between wanting to look good and wanting to present yourself well and letting your actions be dictated by what others might think of you. And I think that that's what he's describing as a performance-based life, is that I was presenting this image to the world of my success, all the while I was stressing myself out trying to keep this image up. And ultimately, that's what led me to self-medicating.
And how has your life changed away from that?
I don't care what other people think. No. It's not based on performance. It's based on what I need to do to keep myself healthy. And you know, once again, not to be cliche, but going back to the 12 steps, just continuing to practice those last 3 steps in my daily life is what keeps me grounded and ultimately gives me that freedom from the obsession.
I don't know what the last 3 steps are, so can you tell me what they are?
Sure. The 10th step is continuing to take a personal inventory on where we were wrong, promptly admitted it, which is a combination of steps 4 and steps 9. 10 is continuing to improve your conscious contact with your higher power as you understood him through prayer and meditation. And then steps 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, practice these principles in all of our affairs, and carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. McLean?
Hi.
Good afternoon. I just have a couple of follow-up questions. You stated that you have not participated or in any continuing education courses since 2015, but you've taken some classes. Why have you not taken any continuing ed courses?
I don't have any good answer other than I just haven't thought of it. You know, obviously, I was making a push to get my license back. I hadn't done anything productive in my life towards that goal until I made that decision, and that's where I started accumulating the continuing education hours. I guess I got busy with life, and I just haven't done any lately, so.
And you stated that you don't want to actively practice chiropractic or see patients, rather. Then why do you want your license reinstated?
So, and let me clarify on that. It's not that I don't have any desire to adjust patients. I love chiropractic. You know, I love the art and the practice of chiropractic. We have a busy clinic that doesn't need me to see patients. There would be times where it would be convenient if I had my license. I could jump in and help out or fill in when someone else was out of town. But for the most part, all of our roles in the practice are set. I love what I do. I'm still involved with, you know, helping patients get through their care. But ultimately, my goal isn't to go out and build a practice on my own or even within my brother's practice. So why do I want to get my license back, I believe you asked me.
Correct.
Personal goal. I worked very hard to get through college. I love the profession, and it would just mean a lot to me to, first of all, come before the board, make amends, accept responsibility for what I've done, and be given that opportunity to hold a license again.
And my last question, or maybe it's not my last question. The letter written by your brother, it appears, do you recall when that letter was written? I don't see a date there.
Do I recall when it was written?
It's okay.
Oh,
Do you, if you don't recall, do you recall when it was written?
a couple years ago, a year ago, a little while ago.
Okay, so I do have one more question, sorry. So you stated earlier that your behavior started with normal, that you had plenty of time in your life where you would work during the weekend, and drank on the weekend as part of normal activity. Did you use narcotics or illegal drugs on the weekends during those times as well?
I have in my past, but that wasn't a regular practice of mine. I mean, spans of years in my life were spent without even thinking of drugs, much less using them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rufino?
Good afternoon. I got a quick question regarding the reimbursement. We have an internal memo on May 2nd that you had a remaining balance of $2,800 approximately, and then today we got another internal memo that was amended and was paid in full. So my question is, the remaining balance, the $2,800, was that paid this month?
Last week,
Last week.
yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Lickman?
I have no questions.
Dr. Rosa?
I also commend your hard work it is to rehabilitate oneself from a drug or alcohol. If I may, I think the assistant, what is your title? District Attorney, right?
Deputy Attorney General.
Okay, I'm sorry. The idea that if you were, you know, what was a plan of action if you really began to feel like you could not hang on and not take something in your body. I know many alcoholics will have like a phone list of men's group. They will go to more meetings. They will attend more meetings. They will become of service and more frequently, or that may have been something she was looking for. I can't speak for you, obviously, but that idea. And then the second part of my question is, you get your license back, had a rough day, come home. Are you married now?
I'm engaged.
Engaged, well, good, you got somebody in your life. You come home, you're burnt out, you're really stressed. What do you do now to relieve the stresses and strains of life, as opposed to taking a drug or drinking?
So I have those days. I think we all have those days, with or without my license, especially being, back in full-time employment, a lot of pressures of running a big practice. I have the opportunity to vent to my loved ones. I work out regularly. I'm an avid snowboarder. So I have avenues of letting off steam. I also have the tools that were given to me through recovery, through my psychologist. I meet with my sponsor regularly, and I dump all of my stuff on him, and he does the same thing back to me. So in commenting on, I don't know if your first question or comment, but you're absolutely right. Those are all suggestions of recovery. And ultimately, continuing to practice those principles in my affairs is what gives me freedom from that mental obsession. There's always going to be stress in life. And I've just learned from the tools I've developed through the steps of AA, through working with others, how to deal with those.
Since you've been in recovery, have you had an incident that would have made you drink in the past?
Yeah, I signed off parental rights to both my children. Haven't seen them for 11 years. And I haven't drank or used over that.
Well,
I remember leaving the courtroom, walking into the bathroom, and thinking to myself, I don't get to drink or use right now. I have to face this dead on. And my sobriety and those raw feelings, I don't get to numb them. And if I can make it through that, I think there's nothing that's going to take me out. I don't want to get cocky, but I've been through some trying times. I'm still picking up the pieces of my past.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one question here. Is the name of the practice still Oakdale Physical Medicine?
No, we were involved in 2 practices. Now it's just Escalon Physical Medicine.
Okay, do you have a physician there?
Yes.
No further questions.
Anything else from the board? Ms. Mantle, do you have further questions first?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bystrom.
Mm-hmm.
With that, the matter is submitted, the record is closed, and we're off the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bystrom, if you'd like to wait for a moment, the court reporter can give you a form if for whatever reason you would like to request a copy of the transcript that gives you the information to do so.
Thank you.
This is just for your records. Thanks.
Mr. Richardson. Have a seat, sir. On the record before the Board of Chiropractic Examiners to review the petition for early termination of probation of Charles Richardson, OAH number 2017-040338. My name is Heather Rowan. I'm an administrative law judge. I have been assigned to preside over this matter. During the first hearing, we established that there is a quorum of the board today. May I take the appearance of the Attorney General, please?
Melissa C. Mantle, Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. And Mr. Richardson, you are present and representing yourself today, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And before we went on the record, I gave you an overview of how the hearing would proceed. The Deputy Attorney General will give an orientation of the case. You will have an opportunity to present your own case, and then you are subject to questioning by both the Deputy Attorney General and the board. Your statement will be taken under oath, and at the conclusion of today's proceedings, the board will meet in closed session to discuss its findings. There will be no decision today, but you should get that sometime in the future.
Okay.
Do you have questions before we begin?
No.
Thank you. Ms. C. Mantle.
My name is Melissa C. Mantle, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. If I may approach with the petition packet.
Yes.
Personal information has been redacted and a copy has been previously provided to petitioner.
Thank you.
In regards to the petition packet, there is the letter from petitioner, the petition for early termination of probation with an attachment, the petition for reduction of penalty with an attachment, 14 letters of support, 1 certificate of completion for 16 classroom hours, the decision and order in the matter of the statement of issues against Charles Edward Richardson, board case number 2013-956, OAH case number 2014-020155, with the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order and statement of issues. In regards to a brief background, the board issued petitioner chiropractic license number DC-33073 on September 18th, 2014, pursuant to the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order in the matter of the statement of issues against Charles Edward Richardson, board case number 2013-956, which became effective on September 22nd, 2014. Petitioner's application for licensure was denied by the board, and a statement of issues was filed in the previous matter stated. The statement of issues in the matter was based upon petitioner's 6 criminal convictions. 3 convictions were for driving under the influence, 1 conviction for driving without a valid driver's license, 1 conviction for driving on a suspended or revoked license, and 1 conviction for petty theft. In addition to the causes for denial based upon convictions of substantially related crimes, the statement of issues also included causes for discipline for acts involving dishonesty, fraud, or deceit, and acts warranting denial of licensure based upon petitioner's criminal convictions. Pursuant to the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, petitioner was granted a license and placed on 5 years of probation, which would end on September 22nd of 2019. The terms and conditions of probation include submitting quarterly reports, abstaining from the use of alcohol, and drug and alcohol testing as determined by the board. Petitioner has been in compliance with the terms and conditions of probation. Petitioner is randomly tested approximately twice a month and has tested negative. Petitioner is requesting that the board grant early termination of his probation or a reduction of penalty. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but would reserve the right to question petitioner.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson, could you raise your right hand, please?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. This is your opportunity to present your case.
Okay. Excuse me. First of all, I just want to thank you, board members, so much for granting me my license back in 2014. It meant a lot to me, so I really appreciate that. I'm going to try to keep it together. You pretty much have everything in front of you that I've been through. I had to make a lot of changes in my life. I don't know if you can tell by the timeline, but I went through, some problems in my life. Ironically, it was during chiropractic school. My parents left, and I was on my own, and I tried to find a place to live, and I ended up moving in with a girl I probably shouldn't have, and my life kind of spiraled out of control for about 6 years. And, on 3 separate occasions, I was convicted of a DUI, which I'm really ashamed of. And I tried to clean myself up since then. But what really did it for me was it was the last time. And I was in jail. And, at the time I was dating my now wife. And she had actually gone to my house where I was living at the time. I'd gotten away from the ex-girlfriend, and I met this woman in chiropractic school, and she had a son. Damn. I was in jail, and I got to make a phone call. And hearing his voice, and in the background, it really touched me. He was screaming for me, and he wanted to know where I was, and I'll never forget that. And I made a decision then to change my life. I spent a week in jail that time, and before bedtime, they would sometimes have some sermons, and the person reading that night, I remember, talked about surrendering, and that's something I had never done. I'd always try to fight and say that I can make it through, I can fight through, and even while doing, making bad decisions, I'll fix it. But when I heard the speech on surrendering, it really hit home, and I took it to heart, and I realized that I'm not in control, and I started going to church. I started calling my sister regularly for guidance. She really helped me get through that time in my life. I started dating Takui, my now wife, seriously. I took on her son as my son. His biological father isn't around. He's around, but he's not fit for fatherhood, so he doesn't see Andy. So I take care of him now. And what I just want to get through to the board is, I have a family now. I have a daughter. She was born in 2013. It's something I was missing, for a long time. But when I got that back in my life, it fulfilled the void, And before on the weekends, I didn't have anything to do. I would go out with my friends, and we would drink, and I had the problem because I couldn't stop, or I didn't know when to stop, and my body didn't understand that you can't have this many or you lose control. I just didn't have that. There wasn't a switch. so my family, fulfilled that void that I had as early on as a child. So that was the last time I took a drink, was when I got in that accident. I got in a DUI, November 20th, 2009. I went to AA meetings. I went to counseling. I went to separate alcohol counseling, took classes for that. And since then, I started going to counseling. I went to counseling every week for a year and a half. I found that for me was very enlightening, very beneficial. And then when you guys granted me my license, I was able to work. I was able to work as a chiropractor. Thankfully, I was able to open my own office after working under someone for quite some time. We moved down the street. My wife now works in the office with me. It's just me and her, and we run a modest office. And I have my daughter. She's 3 now. She's 3.5. My son's 11, Andy, and they keep me going. They prevent me from drinking. I have no desire to drink alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol almost 7.5 years. And it's a great life. It really is. The reason I'm asking for the reduction in penalty and or revocation of the probation, I don't want to come off sounding selfish. I know I made mistakes, and I know I need to pay the price. I'm just asking if we can get the reduction. Just my family, they go on vacation, and again, I don't want to sound selfish, like I need this reduction to go on vacation, but my wife's family, they don't know that I'm in this position. It's quite unacceptable in her family for this to happen. So I mean, they don't know about that. My family does, yes, but hers does not. And I'm just asking. I can't ever go anywhere with them when they go, because I have to test, and it's hard to find testing facilities in certain places. So that's one of the big reasons I'm asking for the reduction. Just so I can join them. And during the week, it's not a huge burden. It's a small burden to go test. It's not a big deal. It takes a little time out of the day, and that's not a huge issue. But for me, it's just spending time with my family, being able to go to the mountains with them, or for the weekend, and just somewhere other than where a testing facility is located. It's impossible sometimes. I tried, and they're just not located everywhere. So that's pretty much it, I think, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Ms. Seamantel, do you have questions for Mr. Richardson?
Yes. You just recently stated that your wife's family does not know that you are on probation. You stated that for them it is unacceptable. Can you clarify as to why exactly you haven't told them about your being on probation?
First of all, she requested that I don't. And her family is very, they don't have many flaws, I guess I could say. They're very successful. She grew up in a strong home. Her dad had some issues, but overall, she had a strong family. And my family, I didn't grow up quite like that. There was a little more partying. That's kind of how probably the drinking drifted into my life. But she requested, that I don't tell them, and they may look at me differently. I'm raising their child, Andy is their child, biologically. They may have some concerns, if they do find out, even though they see and know who I am now. If it were up to me, just me, I wouldn't have a problem. I think I can talk to them. But at my wife's request, she asked that I don't tell them.
I don't want to assume, so I'm just going to ask, so,
Yeah.
do they know about your prior alcohol use?
No, they don't know that. They just think I don't drink.
Why do you feel that you should have either early termination of your probation or a modification of your probation terms?
Ultimately, I completely, I understand why I'm here. I don't feel that I pose a threat to my patients or the public at large. I feel like I've proven that, and I think that's just that. I feel like I'm not a threat. I have no desire to drink, and I just, I don't feel like I'm going to put anyone in danger if I'm not required to call every day, if I'm not required to test as I am. It won't change, anything else in my life, the way I progress. I'm extremely busy, and I wouldn't even have time, to do that. Anyways, yeah, so I don't feel like I'm a threat to the public.
Do you have a sobriety date?
November 20th, 2009.
When did you first start drinking alcohol?
I remember clearly the first time I had a Budweiser beer. I was 8 years old. It was in my garage. There was always alcohol in the house, and I remember opening it and drinking it and thinking how gross it tastes. But that was the first time I consumed alcohol. I remember that day. When's the first time I overdrank or drank to the point where I was intoxicated? It was in high school at a party, and I was probably 16. Yeah.
Do you currently attend AA meetings?
I do not.
Why not?
I don't feel they're not helpful for me. I don't know if anyone's ever been to one, but when you go where I went, and there were many different facilities that I went to, different locations, it was very negative. A lot of smoking. I don't smoke. It was very aggressive, I felt, and I didn't feel like I related to what they were going through. I felt like my story was a little different. And for me, when I ended up leaving, I felt more inclined to go drink than I did before I got there. And maybe I didn't work the steps or anything like that. I attended and I observed and I listened and I went, but I felt like that was not me. It wasn't for me. It wasn't going to help me. And so that's why I didn't pursue any further.
What do you mean when you say that you didn't relate to what they were going through?
As far as I recall, in nearly every story that went on, they talked about how they were living on the street, or they were homeless and they lost everything. I guess I kind of feel like I never had anything, to lose, but I didn't quite get that far. Although and they seemed like they were daily drinkers. I was a binge drinker on the weekend, and my problem wasn't that I desired alcohol. My problem was that when I consumed it, I couldn't stop. So for that reason, I felt like they weren't I couldn't relate to them. You know, maybe it could have helped, but I tried, and it wasn't. It didn't feel right for me. So I tried other stuff.
How long did you attend AA meetings for?
I believe I went to at least 12, if not more.
Are you still attending counseling?
Currently, I'm not. I haven't gone. I couldn't go. I was going to Maple for a year and a half, starting in, I believe, May of 2013. And I think I stopped going early 2015. I believe I stopped going.
And why did you stop going to counseling?
It was just I didn't have time to go. The facility I was going to, I loved it, but it took me an hour to get there, an hour to counseling, and then an hour to get back. And it was on a Friday. And at that point, whenever I stopped, we had started to get busier at the office, and I just couldn't allot the time to go forward, to keep going. And I felt at that time I had been pretty rehabilitated, and I had kind of everything in my life in place that I needed to move forward. I had a really stable family. I just kept myself occupied. And I just really didn't feel that I needed to pursue every week going. I did, in the back of my mind, I made plans on attending occasionally when I felt like maybe I was getting depressed or feeling some depression. I haven't gotten to that point yet, and I just never got around to doing it. And I kind of, she taught me a lot of tools, to use with speaking, communicating more effectively with my wife. And really, she's kind of taken on that role of counselor. She really helps me, I could really talk to her.
Are you speaking about your wife?
About my wife, yes. So since I stopped counseling, and the counselor was very effective at helping me build tools to establish a strong family and communicate with my wife better. We've been doing that. Although I would like to go back, and I definitely am open to that. And if I feel the need, I'm definitely open to setting something up and pursuing it again. I'm not closing the door on that. I'm sure I'll be attending, in the near future sometime. I haven't since early 2015.
Why was your driver's license suspended on March 18th of 2005? To give context if you need it, this is when you were stopped for driving in the carpool lane and before you were arrested for any driving under the influence.
I believe it was failure to appear for an earlier citation. So my life I always turned a snowball into an avalanche. I could have taken care of it, but I just didn't. I didn't go to court. That happened several times throughout that period. I had a court date. All I had to do was show up and take care of it. And for whatever reason, I just didn't. I didn't show up.
On July 6th of 2005, you were arrested for driving under the influence after driving at a high rate of speed and traveling against the direction of traffic. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your blood alcohol content was 0.27?
Yes.
On July 29th of 2007, you were arrested for driving under the influence after you made a U-turn across two sets of double yellow lines. Is that right?
I guess so. I don't recall two double yellows, but whatever they said, that's what happened.
What do you recall?
I recall making a U-turn. I was following a friend home after a wedding. The wedding was in La Cañada. I lived in Anaheim. I didn't want to make that drive, and a friend lived nearby, near Los Feliz, and I was following him. I had lost him. I felt like I was going the wrong direction, and his house was behind me, so I made a U-turn. And shortly after, I was pulled over and given a field sobriety test.
And your blood alcohol content was 0.17, 0.18% by breath?
Yeah.
On November 20th of 2009, you were arrested for driving under the influence after your vehicle spun out of control on the freeway and hit a center freeway divide.
Yes.
Was your blood alcohol level 0.14, 0.12% by breath?
Yes.
You had 3 driving under the influence arrests in about 4.5 years, is that correct?
Yes.
And each time your blood alcohol level was above the legal limit of 0.08%?
Yes.
Do you have a relapse prevention plan?
My relapse prevention plan is in the way of staying busy and I mean, I'm scared to death to drink. It's taken everything I've had from me and prevented me. It stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't pursue my dream, because of that. My relapse prevention plan is in my family. My relapse prevention plan is going home to my kids. That's my life, taking care of my family. I play baseball on the weekends. I coach my son's baseball team. That's my plan.
You mentioned previously that you had, at least in the past, called your sister for guidance. Do you still do that?
Occasionally, yeah, not the way I used to. I call her daily and just check in with her. That was after I had graduated and I was commuting to work every day without a vehicle. I started losing a lot of hope in my life because of how difficult it was for me to get to work. And again, I know it sounds petty because I know people commute like that every day. It took me 2.5 hours to go 13 miles, and the bus would pass me when I was standing at the bus stop sometimes. It was I'd be devastated almost on a daily basis by getting off this bus and getting on another bus, and for whatever reason that bus had left already, so I have to wait an extra hour at the bus stop for that bus to come, and then I gotta put my bike on the bus, but sometimes the 2 bike racks were already taken, so I have to wait for the next bus after that, and it was, sometimes I'd get to work 2-3 hours late because of that, and I was working as a preceptor, and I'd had some patients that I was supposed to treat, and my uncle's calling me saying, "Where are you?" And I'm waiting for the bus, like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? So I needed her during that time, to get through that. I would fall into a depression. It was hard for me, doing that. So, calling on her, she helped me. She really helped me. She sent me a Bible. She sent me another Bible, a 1-year Bible, to read a verse every day. And she just kept me in line, making sure I was okay. And, that really, really, really helped me tremendously during that time. But I call her occasionally, not often, not too often.
Can you give the board assurances that you will not begin using alcohol again if your probation is modified or terminated?
Yes, I give you all the assurance. You can take my license away forever if I drink again. There's no worry. I promise you I'm not a threat. I'm not going to drink alcohol. That's all I can give you. I'm just not going to do it.
Do you have any letters of support that you've brought with you today?
No, I have nothing other than what I've already sent you. All I have is that I've been testing. I call every day. I have to test today, as a matter of fact. So when I get back home, I'll be figuring that out. No, I don't have anything else.
One final question. Have you been convicted of any offenses since you submitted your petition for early termination or modification?
No.
No further questions.
Thank you. This time, I'll start with my left. Dr. Rosa, do you have any questions for Mr. Richardson?
Yes, I do. How often do you get tested a month?
I get tested twice a month, once during the week and once on a weekend. It's random, but I've found that it's twice a month.
So it's only twice a month? How much does that
Yes.
really interfere with, say, your family?
Well, if I
mean, is
haven't,
that- For example, do you get called every weekend?
no, it's one weekend, so there'll be one Saturday. I don't know what Saturday it's gonna be. For that reason, I can't plan anything unless I can locate a facility nearby. And for example, it's very difficult to go see my parents, because they don't have a facility in Arizona, Lake Havasu City, that's open on the weekends. It's only open during the week, so I can't go see my parents, or my sister, for example.
Would you consider yourself an alcoholic?
The definition of alcoholic, yes, I can't control, once I stop, I can't feel anything. So, yes, it has affected my life. It's interfered with my life a great deal. And, my problem is not that I desire alcohol, because I don't. My problem, like I said, is just once I start drinking, there's no gauge. It's just, I don't feel it until it's too late, and it may be a blackout, or next thing I know, I'm throwing up. Yeah.
You made the statement that what's keeping you sober is your family.
Yes.
And I'm going to say something that, God, I hope never happens. But say your
I
family leaves
understand.
you.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
My family leaves me, I'm gonna have, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know it helped in the past. It was the therapy. It was tremendous, My sister, my parents, they are strong. You're saying if I lose all of them as well?
No, I'm talking about your wife and children.
Wife and children, yeah.
Your immediate.
I would have to fall back on the therapy, to get me through, but, I've learned a lot. I've learned, I drank because I was lonely and sad and depressed, and, I'd go out with my friends, and then that's kind of just what we did, But I have a career, something I didn't have. And that's right there with my family. I take this career seriously. I take my patient care seriously when I treat someone. I really do. There's no feeling like making someone feel better. It's a pretty great thing to be able to do, and I really cherish it, and I wouldn't compromise that. Yeah, if I lost my family, I can't really tell you what I would do, Dr. Rosa, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't go back to drinking.
Well, you understand the question is designed. We're here to protect the public,
I understand that.
and we need to get assurance that, well, obviously you can't speculate on something like that, but it concerns me that you place your whole sobriety on your family or your loved ones.
Yeah, I
You
also.
get those pulled away,
Yeah.
you know?
I place it on my practice as well, you know. Those two, I mean, I love my family and nothing can replace that, but my practice is really right there, right beneath them. That's what I live for.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Dr. Lakeman, any questions?
I actually have no questions.
Mr. Rufino?
No questions.
Dr. McLean?
I have just a couple of things. You said you tried other stuff because AA didn't work for you? Or
Yeah.
you couldn't relate? What were?
It was the
referring
therapy,
to?
going to the Maple Counseling Center. You know, my sister, and learning to communicate effectively with my wife, playing sports, coaching my son. All those things are really therapeutic. You know, I mean, from the emotional standpoint, the therapy was tremendous. I did not think I would get as much out of counseling as I did. So that was the main thing at that point in time that I gravitated towards, and I found that was it for me, rather than the AA.
Okay, and I'm sorry, what did you say your sobriety date was?
November, the last DUI, November 20th, 2009.
Okay, thank you, I have nothing further.
Dr. Jane?
I just have one question about your wife's family.
Yes.
So you said that it's at your wife's request that you're not sharing this information with them.
Right.
Is it a cultural thing? Is it just a belief system?
No, she's Armenian. There's kind of, yeah, I guess so. There's two sides to Armenian. there's the party type, and then there's a hard-working, like, just nails, and that's her family, you know. And her dad would probably look at me differently. At least she feels that way, even though they've known me for so long. I don't know. They definitely party, and they do that. It's not that it's unacceptable to drink amongst the Armenian culture. No, I think she doesn't want them to look at me differently. And I'm not Armenian, so I kind of went in there with, you know, shorthanded already, and so she didn't want to divulge that information.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Seamantle, do you have any further questions for Mr. Richardson?
No, I don't.
Okay, if there's nothing further, and I believe I have all of the documents in the packet. There was nothing else, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Then if there's nothing further, then the matter will be submitted. The record closed, and we're off the record. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Before you leave, Mr. Richardson, if you could pick up a sheet from the court reporter. She just has information about ordering a transcript, if you'd like one.
Okay.
Just for the information of the audience, after the court reporter and the administrative law judge are done, they packed up, we're going to go into closed session, so everybody will need to be out. After closed session, we're going to adjourn the meeting, so just to let everybody know what the process